everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today we're doing the mid-year freakout tag, which of course is always crazy to be like, wow, how are we halfway through the year, etc, etc. Let's just get into it. The first half of this year has kind of been unusual for me in terms of reading because I've been reading a lot more than usual. I've been reading a lot of contemporary romance, which is unusual, but I am also going to try and avoid using rereads for answers to these because, like, of course rereads are going to be favorites. Like, I already know I like them and that's why I reread them. So there are books that are certainly ones that I like rated highly and loved, but since they're rereads, they're mostly not going to be on this probably. But let's just dive into it. First question is the best book you've read so far this year, always starting out with a bang. For me, this actually is a very easy answer. It is The Wolf and His King by Finn Longman. I just read this truly from like page one. I was loving this book. This book is so perfectly up my alley for everything that I love. It is adult historical fantasy. It is a retelling of like an obscure like 12th century story about a medieval werewolf who is a knight. It is a queer retelling of that story. It is like, the writing is absolutely beautiful. It's so emotional and evocative. It has a very like unique structure to it because it has three perspectives that are told, like one's in first person, one's in second person, one is in third person, and written in verse. Our main character, Bisclevre, is the only named character in the whole book. Like, it has this kind of stylized quality to it, but I feel like the stylization was done so expertly that it did not detract from the like emotionality of the story or the connection to the characters. It all just blended so perfectly and really even heightened the reading experience of this story. It just is so beautiful, so incredible. Definitely is going to be a favorite of the year. Might now be among my favorite books of all time. We shall see. But I absolutely adored this book, and I have a reel where I talked about it. I also talked about it in my May wrap-up, so I will link those in the description if you want more about this. Although I do think it's one that it's better to go in not knowing too much about it, but it is just like such a beautiful book and definitely my favorite thing that I have read this year. Question 2 is the best sequel you've read so far this year. I actually have not read that many like fantasy series this year. Most of the series and sequels that I've been reading have been contemporary romance. So that just, like, I don't know, it's just unusual for me. So I'll say Our Favorite Songs by Anita Kelly. This is a trilogy of contemporary romance novellas that kind of all revolve around this like karaoke bar. I loved this series. The first two really were my favorites, and so I will put the second book as the best sequel. I also say All Hail the Underdogs by E.L. Massey. I hope I got that name right. I will, you know, it'll be on the screen. This is part of the Breakout series. Wow, my brain is blanking right now. I'm kind of doing this off the top of my head. Like, I wrote down a couple notes, but they're very sparse. But I did really love that series, and that's actually the third book in the series. Next question is a new release you haven't read yet but want to. One of the new, there's so many new releases actually that I really want to read. One of which is The Poet Empress. I definitely want to get to The Poet Empress. I originally was not that interested in it because I think it was marketed very much as romantasy, but I have read a lot of, or seen a lot of reviews where people are saying it really is not romantasy, it much more is like a dark fantasy. And, you know, I've been burned before by this argument as to whether a book is romantasy or not. Like last year, there were all of these people saying that The Night and the Moth was not a romantasy. And then I read it and I was like, this is 100% a romantasy. I don't know what you're talking about. Based on what I have seen people say about The Poet Empress and also who is saying it, I feel more confident that The Poet Empress is in fact not a romantasy and has been mismarketed. I feel more confident in that. I also read like the first page of it just to kind of see what the writing was like. It seems to me that the writing in The Poet Empress seems good. So it could have a solid chance of being something that I actually like. And also, I actually was thinking of maybe doing another channel buddy read for this. I believe it was Rebecca from our channel buddy read of The Horse Goddess by Morgan Llewellyn suggested The Poet Empress as a second like channel buddy read. So if anybody else wants to do that, I would be down to buddy read it. Let me know in the comments if you're interested and I'll set something up. I'm not exactly sure yet when we would do that. We'll probably like vote or something on when people want to read it. But I had a lot of fun buddy reading our last channel buddy read, so maybe we can get another one going for The Poet Empress. Another new release that I'm also interested in, but I'm less certain how I'm gonna feel about it, is The Works of Vermin, and I can't remember the author's name, but another one that, this one is horror and it also seems very weird, but another one that I like read like the first chapter and I was like, I like this writing, and so I'm very tempted to read it. And this one might be more, maybe more of like an autumnal read since it's more like horror. I don't know, it seems very strange and I just don't know if I will like it, but I'm so tempted by it. Next question is most anticipated release for the second half of the year. I actually already did my anticipated releases for the second half of the year. I posted that just recently, so I'll link that in the description. That is like broadly, you know, over 20 anticipated releases for the second half of the year. I initially thought 2026 was going to be a year that just didn't have a lot of releases I was very interested in, but then when I was putting together that list, I was like, oh, there's a lot of stuff that I want to read. So I have that on my Instagram. I did a post of my top 9 anticipated releases, but I will narrow it down even further to my top 2. So one of them is Adam Mine by Kay Ancrum, because I'm always anticipating a Kay Ancrum book. This is her first historical fiction, historical fantasy. It's a Frankenstein retelling. I do like historical fantasy. I'm not that into Frankenstein, but I trust Kay Ancrum and I do believe I will like this. And then my other most anticipated release is The Animals We Became by Finn Longman. So Finn Longman wrote The Wolf and His King, which I absolutely adored, and they have a new book coming out, I believe in November. I have seen different dates, but I think that's what's happening is that it is probably coming out in the UK in November 2026, and then maybe it'll be coming out in the US in 27. So I'll probably just order it from Blackwell's and get it this year. But anyways, the point is, I'm so excited about this. I saw a post on their website where they were saying like it is a very, like it's very different from The Wolf and His King. So, you know, I'm gonna kind of go into it expecting it to like not be the same type of thing, but I do know that I like their writing, and this is also like a historical fantasy retelling. I really enjoy that they're doing these like retellings of more obscure stories, things that I've never heard of before. I had never heard of the story of Bisclavaret before reading The Wolf and His King. I actually read the book first and then went and like Googled the original story to be like, what parts of this were part of the actual story and what was added to it. Anyways, I am so excited for The Animals We Became. I have no idea what it's about. I read the description once and immediately erased it from my memory so I could just like go into it completely fresh. Next question is, what was your biggest disappointment so far? And I feel like this year I've had a few disappointments. Some of them like Green and Deadly Things by Jen Lyon. The book wasn't terrible, but I really thought I was going to love it way more than I did. You know, it has like necromancy, botanical magic, there are knights, like it just seemed like it was something that was going to be up my alley, and I liked a lot of the ideas, but I just really didn't enjoy the execution of it, so that was disappointing. I also recently read The Mercy Makers by Tessa Gratton, which another one that wasn't terrible, but I just had such high expectations for it because I love Tessa Gratton. And this is, before this, her only like adult fantasy that she's written has been The Queens of Innisleer and Lady Hotspur, which is like some of my favorite books of all time. And so I went into it probably with like very high expectations, and it just really did not land for me. So it was more disappointing because of how high my expectations were than because it was like terrible or anything. I also, and then probably the book that I've rated the lowest so far this year was The Horse Goddess by Morgan Llewellyn, which is the one that we buddy read over on Discord, and like the buddy read itself was delightful. I had a lot of fun getting to chat with everybody about the book. The book itself really did not work for me, which was disappointing because I was really hoping to fall in love with Morgan Llewellyn because she has quite a backlist of like Irish historical fiction novels, and that would have been a great, you know, that would have been great to have a new author that I could just binge through a lot of their books. But I gave The Horse Goddess like 2 stars, and somewhat feel like maybe that was generous. Next question is, what was your biggest surprise? I mean, for sure The Wolf and His King was a big surprise. I will give you another one also, just for the sake of not repeating myself too much, but it really did surprise me. It kind of came out of nowhere. It had like vaguely been on my anticipated releases list, but I didn't really have a plan to read it, and I hadn't really seen anybody talk about it except maybe like one person I saw review it. But I decided to pick it up for some reason, and I'm so glad that I did because I loved it so much, and it was such a surprise for me. It just came out of nowhere and is a favorite. But my other surprise, for the sake of not just like only talking about one book, is The Entanglement of Rival Wizards by Sarah Rosh. Another one that I went into with no expectation, didn't really plan on reading. The only reason I read it was because this year I've been reading a lot of sports romance. The second book in this series is like a fantasy sports romance, and I was like, oh, maybe when that comes out I'll read it, but I should probably just read the first book first so that like I have context for it. And I could get the audiobook from my library. So I picked it up, and then I had so much fun with Rival Wizards. It was just like, it is very fun, very lovable characters. One of the few times that I have genuinely enjoyed a rivals to lovers. It's like academic rivals to lovers in this kind of alternate fantasy modern day with like D&D magic in it. But there is also this real like emotional component to it, because these characters are dealing with like really serious trauma from their lives, difficulties with their families. There's a lot going on under the surface for these characters, and so the book is very fun, but there is also this real like emotional undercurrent that ties it all together as well, which I thought was done fantastically, and I absolutely loved Rival Wizards. Next question is favorite new author. I think my number one answer to this will be Finn Longman. Granted, I've only read one book from them, but I also loved it so much that I am like just really excited about them as an author. I guess we will find out more definitively how I feel about them as an author when I read the second book, when I read their second book, The Animals We Became. But yeah, that is probably my number one answer. There are also a lot of like contemporary romance authors that I discovered this year that I've really enjoyed. So I did this year, like many people, binge through the Game Changer books and then literally everything else that Rachel Reed has written. So Rachel Reed is an author that I discovered this year that I really loved. I've also really loved reading through Anita Kelly's works this year. Some have certainly worked better for me than others, but overall really enjoyed their writing. And I even more recently read a series by E.L. Massey, which I also very much enjoyed, and definitely want to read more from them as well. Next question is a book that made you cry. And for this one, if I had another answer, I would give it to mix things up, but truly my only answer is The Wolf and His King. I am not somebody that cries very often or very easily at books. So usually there are books, of course, that like make me very emotional, but it doesn't normally like manifest as crying. But The Wolf and His King truly did make me cry more than a lot of other books have. And I think for me in this case, it actually was less about the actual events that were happening in the book and more about the themes of the book, and really thinking about like the themes and how they connect to other like ideas and things in the world or things in my life, or just like how those themes, like what they meant. So it was much more of like the themes themselves than the actual events of the book. And I think that's also one of the things that I really loved about this, that in a way the book kind of transcended itself for me, that it was not only about the book, but it was about this like the larger ideas and like feelings of the book that really like hit me. Next question is a book that made you happy, and I will list some of the romances that I read this year, of course. There's the Moonlighters trilogy by Anita Kelly, which I already mentioned, and especially the first 2 books in that series. There is The Entanglement of Rival Wizards, also made me very happy. I loved that. But one that I haven't mentioned yet, but I absolutely loved, was Time to Shine by Rachel Reed. This is a standalone hockey romance that truly feels like it could have been in the Game Changer world. It's just not for some reason. But this is probably my favorite Rachel Reed book that I have read this year, and most of that is just because I love Landon so much. And yeah, that one definitely made me happy. So all of those made me happy. The next question is the most beautiful book you've bought so far this year, and that has to go to The Wolf and His King. Actually, let me grab it. This book, like this cover, absolutely stunning. The Under the Dust jacket, also beautiful. The end papers, look at these end papers, fantastic. And I am not one particularly for sprayed edges, but still, look at these sprayed edges with the wolf, incredible. So definitely the most beautiful book that I have bought this year. And our last question is, what books do you want to read by the end of the year? There are a lot of things obviously that I want to get to. I definitely want to read Kill the Beast by the end of the year, and I'm actually hoping I will get to it pretty soon. I also really want to read The Spear Cuts Through Water, and then I also really want to read something by Carol Berg. Earlier at the beginning of the year, I made a video about like my top authors to try this year, and I think I have read 2 of the 3. Carol Berg is my last one that I need to try, and I have a couple of books from her, so I really want to get to something by her by the end of the year. All right, well, that is my mid-year freakout tag. Don't forget to let me know if you are interested in buddy reading The Poet Empress, but also let me know your answer to any of these questions. I particularly, of course, would love to know what is the best book that you've read this year. It can be hard to choose, so if you want to list more than one, that's fine, but I would love to know. Thank you all for watching, and until next time, bye.